The All Blacks weathered a Wallaby storm to come through comfortably in Melbourne. My name is Mark, let's talk rugby. We have a quick start from New Zealand in this one. They worked their way up to around the Australian 22, have a clever kick from Smith, which leaves Australia with a tricky 5-metre line out at their own line. They decide to go quick from that, but Scott Barrett anticipates it. He comes through and absolutely thumps Tate McDermott back over his own line. He spills the ball. Voxel dives on the loose ball to score the try. Conversions misses 5-0 to New Zealand after just a couple of minutes. We then have a good burst from Nawaqanitawase, gives Australia momentum as they're looking to respond to that early score. They work it up the line and then they go wide to Conan Betty. He gets forced into touch as he's trying to, one of these ones where you're diving over and trying to place the ball beside the flag to score. But Timo Check shows that he was actually in touch before he grounds the ball. But we do actually check another instant, because before that, Valentini looked like he went close under the post, and we see that he's driving, he's tackled short, but then he does reach out and place the ball, so it's a try. It's converted by Gordon and it's 7-5 to the Wallabies. Australia at this stage are holding onto the ball. Players are coming onto the ball at pace and from deep as well, and that's giving them go forward. They're being very aggressive at the breakdown as well, which is giving them quick ball. And New Zealand, they get pinged at the breakdown as they try and slow it down. Gordon steps up for what looks like a very kickable penalty. It's in front, it's a bit out, it's not like a halfway or anything, but it's not a gimme, but you'd expect, a test 10 to get it. But he drags the kick wide, left and to the wide, so we're still at 7-5. Wallabies, though, they're winning at this stage, winning the battle of the breakdown. Piatau, he managed to get over the ball and win a penalty for them to relieve a little bit of New Zealand pressure. Karabi then, he checks Bowden Barrett and gives New Zealand a chance to kick up the line into the 22. It's one of these ones where Barrett kicks it over him and he just kind of jumps up as if he's going to try to block the ball then, but what he's really doing is just jumping into Barrett's way, and Barnes doesn't buy it, so that's where the penalty comes from. And that's where I think New Zealand kind of get that momentum to come back at Australia again. So although from here Retallick does give away a penalty for a tackle off the ball, Australia are able to clear, but New Zealand are just coming back at them at this stage. So they come forward again and they are starting to exert more pressure on the Australian defence now. They manage to work it up the line. They can't up to the line, but they can't get over. They do win a penalty for offside. They kick that to the corner. Australia's maul defence, I think, did really well because New Zealand set up the maul. Australia have their defence set, and then New Zealand spin it to the left, and they kind of almost shear off and leave most of the Australian pack on the side of the maul where they're not really effective in the maul defence, but they go back and regroup and are able to actually halt it. I think they did really well because later on in the game, New Zealand used the same move to much better effect, but at this point, Australia were able to get in there and disrupt. New Zealand then decide to go to pick and goes and one out runners. Australia almost counter-ruck over the ball, but New Zealand just about hang on to it. They then win another penalty for offside. This time, Talea decides to take a quick tap. He goes over under the post and grounds, but then we have a Timo check because we see that he didn't actually tap the ball. He lifted it and then drops it on the ground, and the ball isn't live yet, so he goes in again, and as he kind of brings his foot to tap it, you can see that the ball doesn't really move forward at all, so it's no tap and no try. Australia have a 5-metre scrum, but Coram Betty, he gets 10 minutes in the bin for his infringement that led to the penalty that Talea messed up. So Australia down to 14. Australia, though, from the scrum, they managed to kick it clear, but then the All Blacks work it back into the 22, and it's becoming a little bit relentless now. and Australia really are, trying to hold out. They then kick the penalty to corner. Scott Barrett claims the line out. The Maul this time does the same move again. They roll around the Wallaby defence, but they manage to get over. Then Mo'unga converts from, it wasn't a give me kick for that one, but he converts for 12-7. New Zealand are back in front, and it's kind of been the story of the game that Australia had periods of possession and pressure, but they got that one score, but other times they haven't been converting them, whereas New Zealand have been getting in position and coming away with points more often than not. Then Carter Gordon, his restart doesn't go 10 metres, and then the All Blacks win a penalty at the scrum. Up to that point, the Wallabies actually coped with the New Zealand scrum pretty well. The New Zealand scrum have been the most abrasive, I think, in the Rugby Championship this year, but this was the beginning of New Zealand getting on top in the scrum overall. Australia lose their captain, Alan Alaalatoa, to injury just before the break. Didn't look good for him either, so I hope he's going to be back for the Rugby World Cup. Talea then manages to step past 3 Wallabies, gets himself within 5 metres of the line. New Zealand recycle it. They get held up over the line. There's no try, but there's definitely momentum is with them. They then go through another 20 plus phases. This time they're managing to suck in defenders, and that leaves space out wide. They get out to Will Jordan. He does really well to finish and gets his, by now, customary try. Seems like every time that guy plays for the All Blacks, he's scoring. Mo'unga converts from the touchline. It's 19-7 is a halftime score. Into the second half then, Australia, they're looking to respond. Skelton manages to strip the ball in kind of the middle of the pitch. That gives them go forward. They then win a penalty. They kick that to the corner. They maul it, but the All Blacks counter really well and make it unplayable, turn the ball over. Australia then decide to ring the changes, bring on almost all the subs at the same time, and it's just the start of the second half. And they then come back again. They get themselves within 5 metres of the line again. They go for fake maul from a line out, but go quickly off the top. Valentini goes close, but he can't get over. They then come back for another penalty, but Savea, as they go again, manages to get over the ball and win a penalty for the All Blacks. And Australia, they just can't score. They've got the momentum at this stage, but you feel like it's going to swing back to New Zealand at some point, and they need to get the scores now while they can. New Zealand then, they miss touch from that penalty. Noaka Nisawase runs back. Australia win another penalty. Quade Cooper, he's on for Gordon at this stage. He kicks it to the corner. Australia, they get momentum with the maul, but then the All Blacks manage to halt them, a couple of metres short of the line. Again, they're able to make it unplayable and get the turnover. Australia, they seem to have a lot of grunt in their mauls, and they're kind of relying on that. Whereas the All Blacks, when they've got attacking mauls, it's that guile, that being able to move, the point of contact and just deny Australia all the heft that they have in their pack. Whereas I think if Australia were able to do that on the occasions they had, they probably would have got over to score as well. But maybe just not good, smart, on-field leadership there. Australia then, they lose Tupou to, what looks like a bad rib injury for him. Again, hope he's going to be back for the Rugby World Cup. We have a Timo review just after he's gone off that shows that his last action was an upright tackle, and that should be a yellow card. So Angus Bell, who come on to replace him, is actually sent to the bin. New Zealand then make hay while they have the extra man. They manage to work it close to the line, and then Caleb Clark forces his way over to score the bonus point try. Is converted for 26-7 and feel like at that stage it should be game over. They then strike again. They suck in defenders close to the line. They then get it out to Jordan. He gets it to Talea, who goes over in the corner. And then right from the restart, New Zealand score again. They, good catch and break. Then Leonard Brown breaks up the left to then switch it back over to the right. Talea draws the cover defence and puts Rico Ioane over, and then the conversion makes it 38-7. Angus Bell then, he's just back on the field. He bursts into the 22 for Australia, gets hauled down 5 metres short. Australia go through another 15 phases of play, but they just can't get over to score. Then for the rest of the game, New Zealand have possession. They're trying to, they're going after extra scores. Australia just about managed to keep them out. And then their final score is 38-7, not 18-7, 38-7 to New Zealand. Very comfortable. There were times, as I said, where Australia were on top, but New Zealand's defence was just so good to keep them out. And there was also, there were times when, it looked like Australia were just sticking to a script because, as I said, in the second half, they were under pressure in the scrum. And there was a couple of times where the ball was at the back with Valentini, and Nick White, I think, was on at 9. And instead of going in and taking the ball and relieving the pressure, he was standing off because they always had this plan of the 8 picks and gives 9, and then that creates an extra man, in the attack. But just no kind of, sense to change things from White or from Valentini, that White needed to get in there and get the ball because they were under pressure, and they ended up giving away the penalty because of trying to do it that way. And that kind of is reflective of how they were so rigid in the way they were playing all through the game, I feel like, and they need to sort it out by the Rugby World Cup. But in terms of the stats, we're going to have a look at some of the stats from the game. So on attack, it was one try to 6. New Zealand just, dominating on that one. And it was basically the ability to convert when they got into position. I don't think Australia were going to win if they converted all of their chances, but it would have been a closer game. But they just couldn't do it. Apart from that one try that they got, they find it very hard. Meters carried 472 to 664. The All Blacks were making a lot easier meters in the second half. It felt like in the first half, Australia, they had that good go forward, but in the second half, they got kind of a little bit tighter, I feel like, and just kind of that putting that pressure on themselves. And New Zealand started to compete better at the breakdown as well. Carries 122 to 179. Defenders beaten 18 to 33. It felt like, New Zealand, when they got the chance, they found it easier to make ground and beat their opposite man. Clean breaks 4 to 8. Passes 171 to 216. Offloads 5 to 11. Didn't see any kind of, crazy offloads that led to, too many major breaks or anything like that. Turnovers conceded 16 to 9. Australia in the first half looked after the ball well, didn't do so well in the second half. I thought Frizzell and Savea did pretty well, especially Frizzell getting in there and disrupting over the ball. Defense then, tackles made 242 to 188. Missed tackles 36 to 16. As I said, New Zealand pretty good at their defense, holding them out when they needed to. Turnovers 6 to 11, and just being able to get in there and, not just turning over at the breakdown, but in the maul as well on a few occasions. Kicks and play 19 to 21. I felt that New Zealand's kicking strategy seemed to have more about it in terms of structure and everybody being on the same page. Australia, didn't see that many good kind of kick chases or decent kicks that put pressure on. Conversions and kicking accuracy, you can see there, we won't go into too much of that. On to the breakdown next. So Rooks won 103 to 137. Rooks lost 6 each, and Rook percentage 94.5 to 95.8. So pretty good for both teams. Mauls won, though, you can see 4 to 0 for the All Blacks. One of those was the try for Taylor, and then a couple were Australian mauls where Australia were trying to drive over. So mauls, very important for New Zealand in that one. Set plays then, lineouts 12-1 to 10, both went at 100%. Scrums won 3-5. Australia scrummaging at 60%. Most of that drop off was in the second half. New Zealand at 83.3, and in discipline, 7 penalties conceded for the Wallabies to 11 for New Zealand, but the Wallabies couldn't take advantage when they were forcing those penalties, kept kicking it to the corner, going to their maul, and then going to one-out runners and having pretty much the same result every time. Yellow cards, 2 for the Wallabies and none for New Zealand. I felt if Australia were getting a little bit more in terms of pressure when they were getting those penalties, and if they're able to build up pressure and force more penalties instead of making mistakes themselves, or New Zealand being able to turn it over, they might have been able to force a yellow card themselves as well, but just weren't able to maintain that. In terms of the two teams after this, then it doesn't get any easier for Australia now. The return game, I think it's in Dunedin next week. It's obviously not in the Rugby Championship. It's just the second Bledisloe Cup game, but that's going to be an even bigger task for them. They obviously will be improved on this performance because they're going to expect a reaction, but I still don't think that they're going to be able to come over New Zealand on that one. There are some encouraging signs there. I thought that, the depth they were keeping and the pace they were coming onto the ball was really good. They defended the ruck area, the breakdown really well in the first half, not so much in the second half. And then they were very competitive on New Zealand ball again in the first half and not so much in the second half. New Zealand, again, they're showing they're really coming into form at the right time for this year's Rugby World Cup. And, I'd say at this stage, they're on the same level as Ireland and France. Although in the rankings they're in third, I think they're now moved up into that category, given the form that they have at the minute. They've got Australia in the return game. I'm imagining that they're going to make changes for that one, and not because people aren't performing, but they probably want to give people a go in what should be a tough game and see whether they've got what it takes to make the World Cup squad. So expect changes from there. But in terms of the result next time, I think it's going to be New Zealand again. And this win also confirms New Zealand as the Rugby Championship winners for yet another season. I think before the game kicked off, most people expected that they were going to win it, but this just crosses the T's and dots the I's, as it were, on that. So congratulations to them, and looking forward to another good game next week.